Moving on now to hubris news. The UK. Most countries' former angry uncle by arranged marriage turned bitter divorcee is going through a bit of a late empire identity crisis as the world's former strict father who mellowed out with their grandparent years looks back over its legacy and attempts to re-enter life by showing that it has calmed down in its later years. As a leaked report reveals, the UK's Labour Party may abolish the House of Lords if it wins the next election, replacing the Lords with an upper house of nations and regions in an attempt to stay relevant to younger voters who know that they will never own a house, let alone land, so that the title of Lord is unobtainable to them. The Constitutional Review recommends new economic powers, including new tax powers for some devolved governments, which should include stamp duty, powers for local people to promote bills in Parliament via democratically elected bodies, powers for mayors on education, transport and research funding, and a constitutional guarantee of social and economic rights, including a right to healthcare, education and social protection. See, after voting for the Tory party for 9 years, it has become increasingly clear that the UK's sense of self-deprecation and cultural cringe in the face of decades of colonisation has ingrained in the British public and become more of a national identity. The same way that Vegemite and explaining that we don't drink Fosters or call prawn shrimp is part of the Australian national identity. They genuinely think they don't deserve nice things, and it's fun to agree with them. So Labour are seeking to guarantee some basics like healthcare to keep people healthy, education to attempt to gain votes for their own party by highlighting the horrors of their rivals. In a way, them just doing it doesn't seem to be able to highlight. And social protection by making them believe in themselves enough to never fall for the allure of trickle-down economics again. Keir Starmer has already announced banning most second jobs for MPs, which means that Andrew Mitchell will no longer be able to hold his 6 consultancy jobs, supporting investment bankers and accountancy firms for a minimum of £180,000 for 34.5 days work. Ian Duncan Smith could no longer advise to health companies for £45,000, and Priti Patel will have to give up her current position as consultant for Wicked Witch Industries, for which she receives a healthy £18,000 and all the flying monkeys that she can eat. The loss of secondary incomes will come as a real blow to British MPs and may cause some accidental empathy for the poor and working class, as current Prime Minister and chaos generator Liz Truss has made history in a way so very few people do, by getting a major crisis named after her, as investors have rejected her new economic plan, dubbing it Trussonomics, which has already found its way into the Digital Collins Dictionary under New Word Suggestion. And with the amount of articles using it, it may break through as the 2022 Word of the Year, with its definition, Trussonomics, the economic policies pursued by Liz Truss. And the suggested sentence being, the UK's Trussonomics crashes the pound and leaves investors shaking their head. Beautiful work, dictionary. Love it. Not even Boris Johnson managed to make it into the dictionary, probably because perpetually falling upward scarecrow manchild requires too many hyphens to read as a single word without feeling a little bit forced. Trussonomics has seen the UK undergo its most dramatic currency crisis in recent memory, on top of staggering inflation from the Bank of England, sending the UK global financial markets into a tailspin, and not the fun kind of tailspin where a jungle slacker bear gets reimagined as a cargo pilot that had some kind of gentrified Afro-Caribbean theme song that surprisingly slaps and is much better than it has any right to be for a kids show very loosely based on characters from Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book. No, this is the other kind of tailspin, the one that means people will likely die. The present crisis has been driven by a combination of factors, including the economic fallout of Brexit, so congratulations to the Johnson administration and the Tories for finally getting Brexit done, and Prime Minister Liz Truss's recent package of tax cuts, the UK's biggest tax cuts in 50 years, estimated at about £45 billion over 5 years, which proposed tax cuts for the UK's highest earners, announced a rollback of corporate hikes and a cost increase for national insurance, the UK's version of welfare and pensions for those of you who don't live in the UK. If there's one group that's had it too good for too long, it's people choosing between buying Tesco brand bread and freezing to death in increased cold caused by climate change. Truss's plan also slashes the stamp tax, a duty on land sales in England and Northern Ireland, in a bid to increase home purchases. Not for people who need them, by the way, as they'll still be seeking the motivation to better themselves by spending a winter fighting the black spectre of death. That should motivate them sufficiently to pull up their bootstraps and get themselves a house. By the following Monday, global markets responded by selling off UK-backed assets and pushing the pound to a valuation of $1.03 US, the lowest ever value against the dollar. Which gives you a lot of confidence that the trickle-down economics-led approach that she has been touting will definitely be the best way forward. As we've all seen evidenced by the world's richest man, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, who are famously generous with their wealth, raining it down liberally on union-busting lobbies, generously spending on creating duplicate products to undersell popular marketplace sellers, and a veritable deluge of donations to political parties. Ooh. So realistically, as far as Liz Truss's position and place in life, this stuff actually works. The rain down falls on her. The problem is the container political parties are collecting these trickling down funds in is so massive that nothing ever escapes before being slurped up by the greed. I cannot think of a more aptly out of touch metaphor than that of trickle down economics, which is almost always depicted as a tower of champagne glasses mindlessly allowing champagne to pour into them so freely and just wastefully tipping over into the levels below them, an act so far from the reality of a paycheck-to-paycheck worker that even attempting to do so with water would needlessly run up the water bill during a cost of living crisis, that if you tried to explain to your friends that your water bill was high due to trying to replace a champagne tower with a water tower, you'd be kicked out of the secret proletariat revolution meetings for being needlessly wasteful and thus untrustworthy with the resources that we'd give you when the revolution did come. The decision was received so poorly that a petition calling for Prime Minister Liz Truss to call a general election to put an end to the current chaos that has enveloped the United Kingdom has earned more than 370,000 signatures and keeps climbing. Though I'd be careful with involving an election in the UK, because the day after Truss is swept back into office, the number one search on UK Google Trends will be, who is Liz Truss? Which, honestly, we can already say that we've had here in Australia. Do we have a clip?
No, hard to identify. Maybe minor royals, members of the... I can't identify them at this point.
We can't spot everyone, unfortunately. They look like they could well be local dignitaries. It's hard to see. We're looking at the backs of their heads mostly.
But I think we are now getting to the pointy end, as they say, of the... I'm just told that was Liz Truss, the new Prime Minister, in the distance that we could see hopping out of
Going
that
through the
car.
doors.
Well, thank you very much.
Ideas on how to quell the UK economy are being floated, and it seems no ideas are off the table. As Treasury Minister and Minister for Ensuring Maidens Stay Tied to the Track, Chris Phillip, who is responsible for welfare changes and refused to say whether welfare would increase in line with inflation, as previously promised, was discovered to have written a paper in 2013 saying universal credit claimants should be forced to work for the dole on tasks such as cleaning up graffiti or face losing all of their support, which is particularly cruel given the number of changes made by Truss. Low-income households will be almost £400 a year worse off under Number 10's plans to increase benefits at a lower rate than inflation. Australia has, in the recent past, tried similar work for the dole systems, to great failure, and the same week that this discovery was uncovered, Australian Labor MP Julian Hill spoke on work for the dole schemes, saying parts of the welfare compliance regime resembled the TV show Squid Game, in which contestants compete in do-or-die trials. But I'd wager that the Tory party is so desperate for something that people like that attaching themselves to a Squid Game-esque comparison is actually appealing to them, as not only is it Netflix's highest rating debut, but won multiple awards. And they could argue that this is trickle-down economics finally coming to fruition, as instead of giving paltry sums to many poor people over a lifetime, never improving their situation, they are elevating one of the 456 players directly into the 1% with one life-changing amount of money. That person will then be able to reach back to one of their own fellow poors and lift them up, trickling down their own personal wealth. And when they fail to do so, then point and say, see, it's not so easy, is it? It's not so easy. And encourage people to point and condemn this new multimillionaire for not saving his previous comrades while continuing to fail to do anything about it themselves. A more extreme, yet likely accepted attempt to recover the economy has been floated by Truss. Now, the UK will be considering selling Australia to the highest bidder in order to save the economy. Already, a number of interested parties have come forward to own the former prison colony turned pack dog, willing to follow its pack leader into every fight. See, first up we've got China, the most keen buyer, with an eye on the vast resources that can be dug in the open space of Australia's outback, that will then be shipped back to the factories where the phones are made cheaply, and with the amount of space, those pesky Uyghur camps will never be found again, and we can just bury them right in the outback. Then there's America. They just need more people to bolster the numbers of their army, really. Russia jumped in to spite America, for no other reason. They don't really care about us. But of course, Saudi Arabia, always looking to impress the world with impractical high-end builds like the 170-kilometre glass city, has said that Australia will be their biggest impractical purchase yet. There is also New Zealand, who, while not a wealthy country, are tired of their noisy, messy neighbour Australia giving them a bad international reputation. And while not a country, Elon Musk has actually jumped up with an interest in the country, because he needs to get the minerals to build his spaceships, automatic driving death machines, and to take after his father, the emerald miner, by joining a mining industry.